The metal chains around Commander Lee Nari's wrists felt heavier than the gravity on this alien world. She stood in the center of the massive courtroom, surrounded by towering creatures that looked nothing like humans. Their blue-gray skin gleamed under the harsh lights, and their forearms moved in strange patterns as they spoke in their clicking language. Nari kept her back straight and her head high. Even now, even here, she would not show weakness. The Valthek High Council sat on their raised platform like judges deciding the fate of an insect. Their leader, Chancellor Vexkar, leaned forward with his 6 eyes focused on her. When he spoke, the translation device in her ear turned his clicks and hisses into words she could understand. Commander Lee Nari of the human species, Vexkar, said, "You stand accused of war crimes against the Valthek Empire. How do you answer?" Nari looked up at him without fear. "I defended my people. If that makes me a criminal in your eyes, then I accept the title." A wave of angry clicking filled the courtroom. The Valthek did not like her answer. For 3 years, Nari had fought against the Valthek Empire as they tried to take over human colonies. She had won 12 major battles, saved millions of human lives, and earned the respect of every soldier who served under her. The humans called her the Iron Commander because she never gave up, never retreated, and never left anyone behind. But then came the Battle of Kepler 442. The Valthek had set a trap, and Nari had walked right into it. Her entire fleet was destroyed. Thousands of good soldiers died because she made one mistake. The humans had to surrender the outer colonies to save what was left of their forces. The Valthek captured Nari during the battle. They could have killed her right away, but they had something worse in mind. "Your crimes are many," Vexkar continued. "You destroyed our ships. You killed our soldiers. You cost us time and resources. But we are not like humans. We do not simply kill our enemies." Nari felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard stories about Valthek punishments. They were creative in their cruelty. "Death is temporary," another council member said. "Pain fades. But there is one punishment that lasts forever." Vexkar stood up from his chair, his forearms spread wide as he spoke. "We will erase you, Lee Nari. Not just your body, but your very existence. Every record of your life will be deleted. Every monument built in your honor will be changed. Every person who knew you will have their memories altered." The other Valthek clicked their approval. Nari felt her heart skip a beat. "You will become nothing," Vexkar said. "Your victories will be credited to other commanders. Your strategies will be forgotten. Your family will not remember your face. It will be as if you never existed at all." Nari thought about her husband, Jiho, and their daughter Sora. Jiho was a gentleman who worked as a teacher on Earth. Sora was only 15 years old, full of dreams about becoming a pilot like her mother. The idea of them forgetting her completely was worse than any physical torture. "That is impossible," Nari said, though her voice shook slightly. "Is it?" Vexkar gestured to the wall behind him. A massive screen lit up, showing images of human, military databases. "Watch." Nari saw her own service record appear on the screen. Her name, her rank, her list of victories, all of it was there. Then, right before her eyes, the text began to disappear. Her name vanished first, then her picture faded away. Soon the entire record was blank. "Quantum memory manipulation," Vexkar explained. "We can reach into any computer system, any data storage device, any artificial intelligence, and remove specific information. Your species thinks their encryption is strong, but it is nothing to us." The screen showed more databases being altered. Military records, news archives, history books, all being changed in real time. Wherever Nari's name appeared, it was deleted and replaced with someone else's name or simply removed entirely. "But that is only the beginning," another council member said. "The real art is in changing organic memory." New images appeared on the screen. Nari saw her own home on Earth. Through the window, she could see Jiho sitting at their kitchen table, grading papers. He looked normal, peaceful, unaware of what was happening to his wife. "We have already begun the process," Vexkar said. "Microscopic machines are being released into the atmosphere of every human world. They will find their way into every human brain and carefully remove all memories of you. The process takes several weeks to complete, but it is painless and leaves no trace. Nari watched in horror as the screen showed brain scans of humans. Tiny lights moved through the neural pathways, identifying and destroying specific memories. She saw the moment when someone's face went blank as they forgot her completely. "Your daughter will not remember learning to fly from you," Vexkar said with obvious pleasure. "Your husband will not remember your wedding day. Your soldiers will not remember following you into battle. You will become a ghost that never haunted anyone." "You monsters," Nari whispered. "We prefer to think of ourselves as artists," Vexkar replied. "And you, Nari, will be our masterpiece, the complete erasure of a person from history." The trial continued for 3 more hours, but it was just ceremony. The Valthek had already decided her fate. They showed her more evidence of her erasure. Military monuments were being changed. Her medals were being given to other officers. Even the ships she had designed were being credited to different engineers. When it was over, Vexkar announced her sentence. "Nari, you are hereby erased from existence. You will be transported to the prison world of Zarion 7, where you will spend the rest of your life knowing that no one remembers you. You will die forgotten, and history will never know your name." As the guards led her away, Nari heard Vexkar's final words. "In 6 months, the process will be complete. You will be nothing more than a bad dream that no one can remember having." The transport ship that took her to Zarion 7 was small and cramped. Nari sat in her cell, staring out the small window at the stars. Somewhere out there, her family was slowly forgetting her. Her friends, her comrades, everyone she had ever known was having their memories altered. But as the ship traveled through hyperspace toward the prison world, Nari made herself a promise. The Valthek thought they could erase her, but they had made one mistake. They had left her alive, and as long as she drew breath, she would find a way to make them remember her name. 5 years had passed since Nari arrived on Zarion 7. The prison world was supposed to break her spirit, but instead it had made her stronger. The planet was a wasteland of red rocks and endless storms. The Valthek had dumped her here with 200 other human prisoners and left them to survive on their own. Most prisons had guards, but Zarion 7 was different. The harsh environment was the guard. No ships ever came or went. The Valthek expected the prisoners to slowly die from starvation or madness. But humans were good at surviving. Nari had organized the prisoners from the first day. She divided them into groups with different jobs. Some grew food in underground caves. Others built shelters from the constant storms. A few worked as scouts, exploring the vast, empty landscape. It was the scouts who made the discovery that changed everything. "Commander, you need to see this," said Choi Minho as he stumbled into the main shelter. He was covered in red dust and breathing hard from running. Minho had been an engineer before the war. He was good at fixing things and understanding how machines worked. Nari trusted his judgment. "What did you find?" she asked. "Something impossible," Minho said. "There are ruins on the far side of the southern canyon. Big ones. And they are not Valthek." Nari felt her heart speed up. In 5 years on this world, they had found nothing but rocks and sand. If there were ruins, it meant someone else had lived here long ago. "Show me," she said. The journey took 2 days through dangerous terrain. Nari brought Minho and Yang Hyejin, a scientist who had been captured during the Battle of Kepler 442. Hyejin was brilliant with computers and alien technology. When they reached the canyon, Nari could not believe what she saw. Massive stone structures rose from the canyon floor like sleeping giants. The buildings were unlike anything humans or Valthek had ever built. They curved and flowed like water frozen in time. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Who built this?" Hyejin whispered. "Someone who knew. Secrets we have forgotten," Nari replied. They spent weeks exploring the ruins. The buildings went deep underground, creating a vast city beneath the surface. Most of the technology was dead, but some machines still worked. Strange devices hummed, with power from unknown sources. Ijin worked day and night to understand the alien computers. She learned that the builders called themselves the architects. They had lived here millions of years ago before disappearing completely. "Look at this," Hyojin said one day. She had connected her portable computer to one of the architect machines. Information flowed across her screen in patterns that hurt to look at. The architects were master builders. They could change matter at the molecular level. They could make any material do whatever they wanted. Metal that flowed like water. Stone that was harder than diamond. Energy that took solid form. Nari studied the images on the screen. She saw architect workers reshaping entire mountains with their bare hands. Ships that built themselves from raw materials. Weapons that could cut through anything. "Why did they disappear?" she asked. "I do not know yet," Hyojin said. "But they left everything behind, all their knowledge, all their technology. It is all here, waiting." Over the following months, more prisoners joined the exploration. They found manufacturing centers that could create anything if given the right instructions. Storage areas filled with materials that defied human understanding. Weapons that had been waiting for millions of years. But the most important discovery was the memory cores. The architects had recorded everything about their civilization in crystal devices the size of human fists. Each crystal contained the knowledge of thousands of experts. Hyojin learned to interface with them using modified human computers. "This changes everything," she told Nari after weeks of study. The architects knew about the Valtech. They fought them long ago. Nari felt a chill of excitement. What happened? The Valtech were young then, just starting to build their empire. The architects could have destroyed them easily, but they chose to disappear instead. They did not want to become conquerors like the Valtech. "But they left their weapons behind," Nari said. "Yes. I think they knew someone would need them eventually." Nari made a decision that would change the fate of both species. She gathered all the prisoners in the main chamber of the architect's city. "My friends," she said, "we have been forgotten by the galaxy. Our families do not remember us. Our people think we are dead. The Valtech believe they have erased us completely." The prisoners listened in silence. Many of them still struggled with the knowledge that they had been wiped from history. "But we are still here," Nari continued. "We are still alive. And now we have found something the Valtech never expected us to find." She gestured to the alien technology surrounding them. D2. Architects left us tools. Not just weapons, but the power to reshape reality itself. We can use their knowledge to build ships, create weapons, forge an army from nothing. A prisoner named Kim Dong-soo raised his hand. He had been a pilot before his capture. "What are you saying, Commander?" Nari smiled for the first time in years. I am saying we are going to remind the galaxy that we exist. We are going to carve our names back into history, and we are going to start with the Valtech." The work began immediately. Using architect manufacturing systems, they built new equipment. The machines could create anything they needed from the raw materials of the planet. Metal became tools, stone became weapons, energy became power sources. But Nari was not just building an army. She was building a symbol. The ships they created were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They flowed and shifted like living things, their hulls made from architect materials that could change shape at will. The weapons were powered by forces that human science barely understood. Most importantly, every ship, every weapon, every piece of equipment was marked with names. The names of every prisoner on Zerion 7. The names of every human who had died fighting the Valtech. Names that had been erased from history but lived on in the hearts of those who remembered. And at the center of it all, carved into the hull of the flagship in letters that glowed with their own light, was the name Li Nari. The Valtech thought they had erased her from existence, but she was about to teach them that some things cannot be forgotten. Some names burn too bright to ever fade away. Lieutenant Kang Soo-jin stared at her computer screen with growing confusion. The military database was acting strange again. For the third time this week, records were flickering between different versions of the same battles. Soo-jin worked at Terra Command. the main military headquarters for human space. Her job was to maintain historical records and analyze old battle reports. It should have been boring work, but lately, nothing made sense. "System error again?" asked her colleague, Lieutenant Park Woo-jin, from the next desk. "More than that," Soo-jin replied. "Look at this battle report from Kepler 442. She showed him the screen. The report described a major defeat where humanity lost its outer colonies to the Valtech Empire. But the details kept changing. Sometimes it said Commander Ryu Han-sol led the final assault. Other times it said Commander Kim Jae-won made the tactical decisions. The names kept switching every few minutes. "That is strange," Woo-jin agreed. "Maybe the database is corrupted." But Soo-jin had seen this pattern before. Always in reports about battles with the Valtech. Always in the biggest victories and worst defeats. As if someone very important had been edited out of history, leaving holes that the computer could not properly fill. She decided to investigate further. Soo-jin worked late that night, diving deep into archived files. She found fragments of reports that mentioned tactical decisions so brilliant they could only have come from one mind. Battle plans that saved millions of lives. Strategies that turned certain defeat into victory. But the name of the person who created these plans was always missing. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Ryu Tae-min was having his own strange experiences. Tae-min was a historian on New Seoul, Colony. He specialized in the recent wars with alien species. His job was to write the official history of humanity's expansion into space. But the more he researched, the more confused he became. "The timeline does not work," he muttered to himself as he reviewed battle records. "How did we win the Battle of Alpha Centauri? The Valtech had 3 times our firepower. According to the official records, 5 different commanders had worked together to achieve victory. But their strategies contradicted each other. The timing was impossible. It was as if someone had tried to give credit for one person's brilliant plan to 5 different people. Tae-min found similar problems in 11 other major battles. Always the same pattern. Multiple commanders getting credit for strategies that seemed to come from a single tactical genius. He started making notes, trying to piece together the mystery. Meanwhile, strange things were happening to ordinary people across human space. On Earth, Park Ji-ho woke up from another disturbing dream. In the dream, he was married to someone, but he could never see her face clearly. They had a daughter together and they were happy. But when he woke up, he was alone in his small apartment. Ji-ho was a teacher, and he had always been single. He had no children. But the dreams felt so real he could almost remember the woman's voice calling his name. His daughter, Kim So-ra, was having similar experiences on Mars Colony, where she worked as a shuttle pilot. So-ra often found herself staring at empty spaces in her apartment as if something was missing. Sometimes she would set the table for 2 people without thinking about it. Other times she would start to tell a story about learning to fly, then realize she could not remember who had taught her. "I learned from my mother," she would say, then stop in confusion. She had no mother. The records clearly showed she had been raised in an orphanage after her parents died in a transport accident, but the feeling persisted. Someone had taught her to fly. Someone important. Someone who mattered more than anyone else in the galaxy. These experiences were not random. Across human space, thousands of people were having similar moments. Dreams of a woman they could not quite remember. Feelings of loss for someone who had never existed. Memories trying to push through barriers that had been placed in their minds. The Valtech noticed the disturbances. Agent Kexmar received the reports at his station on the border between human and Valtech space. He was responsible for monitoring human activities and ensuring their compliance with Imperial law. "The memory alterations are degrading," his assistant reported. "Humans are beginning to remember fragments." Kexmar clicked his mandibles in annoyance. The quantum memory manipulation should have been permanent. Someone was interfering with their work. "Send agents to investigate," he ordered. "Find the source of these disturbances and eliminate it." But the Valtech agents found nothing. The memories were returning on their own, as if fighting against the artificial barriers placed in human minds. Back on Earth, Su-Jin made a breakthrough. She had been working for weeks to trace the source of the database errors. Using advanced recovery software, she managed to restore fragments of deleted files. Most were just random data, but buried in the code she found something impossible. A name that should not exist. Lee Nari, she whispered as she stared at the screen. The name appeared in dozens of recovered files, always connected to major victories, always mentioned with words like brilliant, fearless, and legendary. But according to every official record, no one named Lee Nari had ever served in the human military. Su-Jin spent the next 3 days carefully reconstructing deleted data. What she found changed everything. Lee Nari had been humanity's greatest military commander. She had won 12 major battles against the Valtech Empire. She had saved millions of lives and earned the loyalty of every soldier who served under her. She had been captured after the Battle of Kepler 442 and put on trial for war crimes. Then she had vanished from history completely. This is impossible, Su-Jin said to herself. You cannot just delete someone from existence. But the evidence was overwhelming. Someone had systematically removed every trace of Lee Nari from human records. Her victories had been credited to other commanders. Her strategies had been attributed to committees. Her very existence had been erased. Su-Jin made copies of everything. She had found and prepared to share her discovery. But before she could send the files, her computer screen went black. A message appeared in alien script that her translation software converted to human text. Stop your investigation immediately. Some knowledge is too dangerous to possess. Su-Jin felt a chill run down her spine. Someone was watching her. Someone who did not want the truth to come out. But it was too late. Su-Jin had already sent copies of her files to Dr. Taemin and several other researchers. The information was spreading through human space like wildfire. Within days, the name Lee Nari was being whispered in military bases, research stations, and civilian colonies. People who had never heard the name before found it strangely familiar, as if they were remembering someone they had tried very hard to forget. The awakening had begun. Humanity was starting to remember their greatest hero. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, that hero was preparing to remind them why she had been worth erasing in the first place. The Valtech border patrol ship Dexfor was conducting a routine scan of the outer rim when something impossible appeared on their sensors. Captain, the sensor operator said, his voice trembling with confusion. I am detecting a massive fleet approaching our position. Captain Yextor moved to the sensor station with his forearms spread for balance. Show me. The main screen lit up with tactical displays. Dozens of ships were emerging from hyperspace at the edge of Valtech territory, but these were not like any ships in known databases. They appear to be made of liquid metal, the sensor operator reported. Their hulls are shifting and changing shape as we watch. Yextor had been a military officer for 30 years. He had fought humans, rebels, and pirates, but he had never seen technology like this. Are they human ships? He asked. Unknown, Captain. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our records. Before Yextor could respond, every communication system on his ship activated at once. The main screen, the emergency channels, even the personal communicators worn by his crew all displayed the same image. A human woman stood before them. She wore a military uniform that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Her eyes burned with cold fire as she spoke. I am Commander Lee Nari of the Terran Defense Forces. You tried to erase me from history, but I have returned to write my name across your empire in fire and steel. Yextor felt his blood turn to ice. He recognized that name from classified files. Lee Nari was supposed to be dead, erased, forgotten, but here she was, commanding a fleet of impossible ships. This is impossible, he whispered. Nari continued her broadcast as if she could hear him. To all Valtech forces listening to this message, you have exactly 1 hour to evacuate your military installations. After that, I will begin my work. The transmission ended, leaving Yextor staring at a blank screen. Captain, what are your orders? His second officer asked. Yextor opened a channel to Valtech Command. This is Border Patrol 7. We have a situation. But Valtech Command was already dealing with their own crisis. Nari's broadcast had reached every ship, every station, every world in the Empire simultaneously. The quantum communication jamming that usually protected their networks had been bypassed completely. High Chancellor Vex Carr stood in the central command center on Valthek Prime, watching reports flood in from across the Empire. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Nari was erased. She does not exist. The quantum barriers around her prison world have been breached," an aide reported. "Long-range sensors show massive energy readings from Zerion 7. Send the Third Fleet to investigate," Vex Carr ordered. "The Third Fleet is already moving to intercept her forces," another aide said. "But sir, you need to see this." A tactical display showed the impossible human fleet moving through Valthek space. They were not heading for any major population centers. Instead, they were targeting military bases, research stations, and government facilities. "She is avoiding civilian areas," the aide noted. "Her targets are purely strategic." Vex Carr watched as the first attack began. Nari's ships moved like living things, flowing around Valthek defenses and striking with impossible precision. The weapons they used turned solid matter into energy, then back into different shapes. Defensive shields collapsed as if they were made of paper. But Nari was not just destroying random targets. She was hitting specific facilities: the memory manipulation centers, the quantum research labs, every installation connected to the technology used to erase her from history. "She knows exactly what she is doing," Vex Carr realized with growing horror. Across the Empire, Valthek forces tried to respond to the impossible attack, but they were fighting an enemy who seemed to know their every move before they made it. Admiral Texvan led the Third Fleet in a desperate attempt to stop Nari's advance. His 200 ships were the pride of the Valthek military, equipped with the most advanced weapons in their arsenal. They met Nari's fleet at the Corvex system site of a major Valthek research facility. "All ships attack formation," Texvan ordered. "Target their command vessel." The Valthek fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and quantum torpedoes filled space with deadly light. Any normal fleet would have been destroyed in seconds, but Nari's ships simply flowed around the attacks like water. Their hulls shifted and changed, absorbing impacts that should have been fatal. When they returned fire, their weapons cut through Valthek shields as if they were not there. "Impossible," Texvan breathed as he watched his flagship's main battery disappear in a flash of light. The human weapons had not destroyed it. They had transformed it into something else entirely. Nari's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral Texvan, I remember you from the Battle of Kepler 442. You fought with honor that day. Withdraw your forces now, and I will let them live." Texvan felt a chill of recognition. He did remember that battle, and he remembered the human commander who had nearly defeated them despite being outnumbered 3-1. But that was impossible. That commander had been erased from history. "You do not exist," he said. "Then you are being defeated by a ghost," Nari replied. 20 minutes later, Texvan was forced to order the retreat. Half his fleet was gone, transformed into strange sculptures of metal and energy that drifted through space like monuments to impossible technology. The news of the Third Fleet's defeat spread quickly through Valthek space. Panic began to set in as people realized they were facing an enemy they did not understand. But the most shocking development was happening in human space. As Nari's quantum interference destroyed the memory manipulation systems, humans across the galaxy began to remember. The artificial barriers in their minds collapsed, releasing 5 years of suppressed memories. Park Ji-ho was grading papers when it happened. One moment he was alone in his apartment. The next, he remembered everything. His wife Nari, the greatest military commander humanity had ever produced. Their daughter Sora, who had inherited her mother's courage and skill. The day the Valthek had taken Nari away. He fell to his knees as the memories flooded back. The pain of forgetting her. The empty years when he knew something was missing, but could not remember what. On Mars colony, Kim Sora experienced the same awakening. She remembered her mother teaching her to fly, the pride in Nari's eyes when she mastered her first combat maneuver. the promise her mother had made to always come home. Across human space, millions of people suddenly remembered the woman who had saved them all. Soldiers remembered following her into impossible battles and somehow surviving. Civilians remembered feeling safe because they knew the Iron Commander was protecting them, and they remembered that she was still alive. The human military response was immediate. Every available ship began moving toward Valtech space. Not to stop Nari, but to join her. Fleet Admiral Chen Wei-Ming led the Earth Defense Force toward the border. He had been one of Nari's closest friends before the erasure. Now he remembered everything. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," he broadcast on open channels. "Our commander is alive. She never stopped fighting for us. Now it is time to fight for her." But Nari had already moved beyond their reach. Her fleet was deep in Valtech territory, systematically destroying every installation connected to the Empire's memory manipulation technology. She was not just fighting a war, she was erasing the erasers, ensuring that no one would ever be forgotten again. And her next target was the source of it all, Valtech Prime itself. The final battle for Valtech Prime began at dawn on the capital world. Nari's fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation above the planet that had ordered her erasure. 50 ships made from architect technology faced off against the entire remaining Valtech armada. Over 300 vessels surrounded the homeworld, ready to fight to the death. High Chancellor Vexkar stood in his command center, watching the tactical displays with growing desperation. His empire was crumbling. Nari had destroyed every memory manipulation facility in Valtech space. The quantum barriers that kept their victims forgotten were failing across the galaxy. "She has come home to die," Vexkar said, trying to sound confident. "No matter how advanced her ships are, we still outnumber her 6-1, but his officers did not look convinced. They had all heard the reports from other battles. Nari's forces seemed to be made of liquid metal that could reshape itself at will. Their weapons transformed matter instead of destroying it. Fighting them was like trying to battle the forces of creation itself. "All ships attack," Vexkar ordered. The Valtech fleet opened fire with everything they had. The space around Valtech Prime lit up with energy beams, plasma bolts, and quantum torpedoes. It was the most concentrated firepower the Empire had ever assembled. Nari's ships danced through the storm of destruction like leaves in the wind. Their hulls flowed and shifted, turning solid one moment and becoming energy the next. When the weapons struck them, they simply absorbed the energy and used it to power their own systems. "Focus fire on their flagship," Admiral Kexran commanded from his dreadnought. "Kill their leader and the rest will fall." A dozen heavy cruisers concentrated their attack on Nari's command ship. For a moment, it seemed to work. The vessel shuddered under the massive assault, its flowing hull crackling with destructive energy. Then it began to change. The ship grew larger, absorbing the attacking energy and transforming it into new armor, new weapons, new capabilities. What had been a cruiser became a battleship. What had been a battleship became something beyond classification. Nari's voice reached every ship in both fleets. "I did not come here to destroy you," she said. "I came here to ensure you never forget what you tried to do." Her ship struck back with impossible precision. Valtech vessels found their weapons transformed into flowers of metal that bloomed in the void. Their shields became works of art that protected nothing. Their engines turned into sculptures that propelled them nowhere. It was not destruction. It was transformation. The Valtech fleet was being turned into a museum of its own. Defeat. Within an hour, the battle was over. The surviving Valtech ships floated helplessly in orbit, their crews unharmed, but their vessels transformed into monuments to human ingenuity. But Nari was not finished. "Prepare the landing craft," she ordered her second-in-command, Yang Hyejin. "I have something to do on the surface." "Commander, let us handle this," Hyejin said. "You have done enough." Nari looked at her old friend and smiled. "No, Hyejin. This part I must do myself." 20 minutes later, Nari's shuttle landed in the government district of Valtech Prime's capital city. She emerged alone, carrying a device the size of a briefcase. The device hummed with power that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Thousands of Valtech civilians watched from their windows as the human commander walked through their streets. They had been told she was a monster, a war criminal who would kill them all. But she ignored them completely, focused on her destination. The High Council building rose before her like a mountain of black stone. Its walls were covered with carvings celebrating Valtech victories over lesser species. At its base was a plaza where the Empire displayed trophies taken from conquered worlds. Nari stopped in the center of the plaza and knelt down. She placed the device on the ground and began entering commands on its control panel. "What are you doing?" demanded a voice behind her. Nari turned to see High Chancellor Vexkar approaching with a squad of guards. The Valtech leader's forearms were spread in a gesture of rage, his 6 eyes burning with hatred. "I am leaving you a gift," Nari said calmly. "You think you have won?" Vexkar hissed. "You may have defeated our fleet, but you are still just one human on a world of billions of Valtech. You will die here." Nari stood up and faced him. "I already died here 5 years ago. You erased me from existence, remember? But the thing about being erased is that it gives you a certain freedom. Dead people do not need to follow the rules." She pressed the final button on the device. The plaza began to shake. The stone beneath their feet cracked and shifted. The Valtech guards raised their weapons, but Nari made no move to defend herself. "Behold," she said, "the power of the architects." The ground split open, revealing machinery that had been hidden beneath the city for millions of years. Ancient technology awakened, responding to Nari's commands. The very stone of Valtech Prime began to move and reshape itself. "This is impossible," Vexkar breathed. "Your people built this city on top of an architect site," Nari explained as the ground continued to transform around them. "They have been sleeping beneath your feet for eons, waiting for someone who understood their purpose." The plaza rose into the air, carrying Nari and the watching Valtech with it. Stone flowed like water, reshaping itself into something new. Buildings grew from the earth like living things. Metal emerged from rock and formed itself into precise patterns. Within minutes, a massive structure stood where the plaza had been. It rose toward the sky like a mountain made by human hands, visible from orbit. Every surface was covered with text in dozens of languages, glowing with its own inner light. "What have you done?" Vexkar whispered. Nari gestured to the towering monument. "I have given you something you can never erase. The names of every human who died fighting your empire. Every soldier, every civilian, every child who perished. Because of your wars." The Valtech leader looked up at the endless list of names covering the monument's surface. There were millions of them, each one burning with quantum fire that would never fade. And there, Nari pointed to the very top of the structure, where letters 50 feet tall blazed against the sky, "is my name, Lee Nari, commander of the Terran Defense Forces, the woman you tried to erase from history. You cannot do this," Vexkar said desperately. "We will tear it down. We will blast it to rubble." Nari shook her head. "No, you will not. This monument exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It is written into the quantum structure of space itself. Every attempt to destroy it will only make it stronger." As if to prove her point, several Valtech soldiers opened fire on the monument with their energy weapons. The beams struck the surface and were absorbed, making the names glow even brighter. "This will stand forever," Nari said. "A reminder that some things cannot be forgotten. Some names burn too bright to ever fade." Vexkar fell to his knees as he realized what she had done. The monument was not just a memorial. It was a quantum beacon that would prevent any attempt at historical erasure. No memory manipulation technology could function while it existed. The names carved into its surface were now permanently part of reality itself. "You have won," he said quietly. "No," Nari replied. "I have simply ensured that no one else will have to fight this battle again." A communication device on her belt crackled to life. Yejin's voice came through clearly. "Commander, we are receiving surrender offers from Valtech commanders across the Empire. They want to negotiate." Nari looked down at Vexkar. "Will your people accept peace? Real peace, not the submission you tried to force on humanity?" The Valthek leader looked up at the monument towering above them. His empire was broken. His fleets were defeated. His most powerful weapons had been turned against him, but his people were still alive, and Nari had shown mercy when she could have chosen destruction. "Yes," he said. "We will negotiate." "Then we have work to do," Nari said. 3 days later, a small shuttle landed at the spaceport on New Sol, Colony. The door opened, and Commander Lee Nari stepped onto human soil for the first time in 5 years. Thousands of people had gathered to welcome her home. Among them were 2 figures who pushed through the crowd and ran toward her. Park Ji-ho reached her first, sweeping her into his arms as tears streamed down his face. "I remember everything," he whispered. "I never forgot you, not really. I just could not reach the memories." Kim Sora was right behind him, wrapping both her parents in a fierce hug. "Mom," she said, "you kept your promise. You came home." Nari held her family close and looked up at the sky. Far above them, barely visible in the daylight, was a new star. The monument she had built on Valthek Prime was so massive it could be seen from other solar systems, a permanent reminder that stretched across space itself. She had been erased from history, but she had carved herself back into it with fire and steel. Her name would never be forgotten again, and neither would the names of anyone who died fighting for freedom. The war was over. The monument was eternal, and Nari was finally home.